Good afternoon, and hi, okay, it's good to see you.
Hi, Shelley. Good afternoon.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the impact that Visa is making in the lives of our sponsored children and their future. I'm going to start from the beginning because I know we have a number of kids that are waiting right now to be sponsored.
85.
Yes, and we have some potentially new people looking to sponsor children. So let's just talk about that entry point for a minute on how we identify kids. Often when we are interviewing them, they've been identified as either high risk of being trafficked or becoming a child laborer. So talk us a little bit about how did they get into that situation?
Yeah. And so there are three categories of children. The key word is that all three categories of children are at risk. And so we have children we identified who were already on the street. And what were they doing in the street? They're either hawking, in other words, they're selling stuff or begging to bring money home to help the parents. That's the least level of risk we have among the children, because in that case, the families or the parents know where they are because they go back home in the evening. The second tier of at-risk children are the children who get taken from their families as domestic servants and taken to the cities, and then they are not sent to school by the families that took them, and they end up being nannies or housemaids or house helps, and when they ask to be sent to school, they're kicked out on the street. And then they're either kidnapped or trafficked, and the parents who have been thinking they are with other families now do not know where the children are. The highest risk are the kids who are being trafficked already, who either kidnapped from the farm, on the street, or runaway teenagers who just run away and get on the street. The teenagers go do whatever they think that would help them succeed, but then they fall into the hands of these traffickers who take them miles away from home and either kill them, exploit them, or do all kinds of evil to them. So those are the categories we identify from. But then the people who help us are the community leaders, the religious leaders, and the law enforcement, because they know who is looking for his or her child. They know which child is on the street, and we begin from the known, and then we'll go to the unknown.
Great. And let's talk a little bit about our kids and their school experience, because as a reminder, all of our kids are in private school. That's part of what we're paying for.
That's right.
And yet there is a public school in Nigeria. And there's a reason why we don't have our kids in the public school. Let's talk a little bit about why we are placing our kids in private school.
It's a very different situation compared to what we have here in America. The public schools in Nigeria simply don't work. They're called government schools. And the government will not like this, Nigerian government, but in some states in Nigeria, teachers are being owed for a whole year, 12 months of unpaid salary. And so what happens? They don't want to quit, because if they quit, they lose their benefits or they get fired formally. So they come to school and they don't teach. And the kids just play from morning till afternoon, and the teachers probably eat peanuts in the classroom. In fact, if you haven't watched our 1-hour documentary from 2016 mission trip, we showed an example of what a typical government public school looks like. Leaky roof, no doors, no windows, kids jumping through the window to the doors. When it's raining, they all pack in one side of the classroom where the water is not, rainwater is not leaking from. It's just a mess, from infrastructure to curriculum to everything, nothing works. So what happens? The Catholic educational system works very well in Nigeria. And you don't have to be Catholic to go to Catholic school. I went to one, all my siblings went to Catholic schools, and that is where the standard is being maintained. There are other private schools that we have children that are not Catholic, but the same standard in Catholic school are across the board on the Catholic, on the public school, and across the board in the Nigerian system. Another thing that's very important for us to note is that when these children are in Catholic school or private school, the expectations are different. And so, for instance, the cumulative assessment that gets you to transition from one class to the other in private schools is 70%. In public school, it is 50%. And so you see people who are gravitating towards the private school just because of that standard in Nigeria. So no visa child is in private school, in public school, sorry. all the Biza children are in private school. And there are children, another point, there are children who their parents have come to us and said, if we keep this child in public school any longer, he or she is going to run away and run into the street. And so we have children we pull from public school into private school who are also being sponsored under Biza, just to save the community from the bleeding that is happening as a result of a messed up public system.
That's a really good point, because I think we started this conversation talking about kids that were at risk that maybe were already trafficking or they were selling. And yet we did have some kids that were in school, but they were in the public school system and really not progressing at all. And so, but I think about the pandemic, and I think about the unrest that is happening in Nigeria and the impact that that is going to have on our kids being able to move forward.
Yeah.
You know, normally we're going to be entering into the third trimester now.
Yeah.
And students would normally be taking those exams at the end of the third trimester, June and July. Right, and then be progressing. Now, there's been an impact because they've missed school.
Yes.
What can you tell us about how they're going to proceed with that?
So there is a philosophy that runs across a lot of African cultures, and mostly Nigeria, the southeast where we are. And that philosophy is the philosophy of I am because we are. Mm-hmm. It takes a village to raise a child, simply. In Nigeria, the relationship between schools and the community is so strong. In the United States here, we have been going through the adverse effect of the pandemic. In Nigeria, as they were coming out of the lockdown, we had political unrest in the southeastern part, in fact, all over Nigeria. And so there are Mondays that kids don't go to school. They call it stay-at-home Mondays, when they are doing a peaceful protest for the government to change, for the status quo to change. There are other days that they've missed school. And so the government has asked the community and the school leaders to come together and have a recommendation on how to close this gap. And they have done a good work, a good job at that, at recommending to the government policies or regulations or guidelines that will help the kids catch up what they've been losing as a result of the political unrest or the pandemic. The good part of this is the relationship between community and the school system or the government. Everything back there is community. If you don't carry the community along, you're not going to make any headway, because it's how they live their life, it's how they look at the world that I am because we are. One child in the village is missing, nobody is happy in that village. One child in the village is not going to school, Biza gets there, you have parents of other children who are coming to tell you, this family have a child. They have a child that needs your help. Whether they come to you or not, please go to them. Their child is in the street, on the street, or needing help, you go. That's the sense that the community spirit that really fits what we do as an organization in Nigeria.
Which really feeds into the whole idea of the impact. You know, we can easily see an impact for a child when they become educated, yes, right? When they get that opportunity to be sponsored and to go through the process. But when you think about the impact for the community when that child goes to school and then completes schooling, and how that will have a ripple down effect in that community for generations.
Yes, I can't say this enough about how much impact any time our sponsors spend on sending one child to school, the impact it has on the generality of the community. Take, for instance, I tell you a story. In 2016 or 17, we went on mission trip to Nigeria. A father came up to us and said, if you have time, I want to tell you a story. And by this time, the child has been sponsored, but it wasn't September yet for this child to start school. But this proud father came to us and said, I was so happy ironing my daughter's school uniform. I hung it in our living room because in 5 generations, this kid of mine, this daughter of mine will be the first to go to school in my family.
Wow.
So think about having a crucifix in the altar. That was what school uniform that Biza purchased or paid for this child to go to school felt like in the family. She has not even enrolled yet into school, but with that school uniform, that was a mantra of hope, a symbol of a bright future for the entire family for 5 generations.
Right.
You can imagine what's going on in the community.
And you can then sense the ripple effect.
Exactly.
How
Yes.
that impacts the community.
Yes.
So when people sponsor a child, there's a fee associated that we each pay annually.
Yeah.
Is that fee strictly for education, or what else does it cover?
So our website has that information. Our every information we put out there in the literature has how that money is split out. So we just, due to inflation around the world, there's been a little increment. So instead of primary sponsorship being 700, it is now 775. Instead of 900 for secondary, it is now 975. Sorry, and then our vocational remains 2,000 to cover education for the whole year. For this $775 for primary or $975 for secondary, the tuition is covered, the school uniform and supplies for 1 year covered, the micro grant that goes to the family so that the child will remain in school and not go on the street to make money to put on the table again. So this is like a win-win situation. The parents keep the grant to make sure that they don't send the child on the street again to help them put food on the table. So tuition, supplies, micro grant, all covered in the tuition for each year.
Which is such a blessing when you think of the fact that we're not just supporting a child, we really are supporting that family.
And community.
And that
The
community,
entire community.
absolutely,
Yes, yes.
absolutely.
Some
Well,
of them don't make $100 in a year. Yeah,
Wow.
they live off the farm. The money doesn't come in. They live off the land, and they don't make that much in a year.
so we are right in the heart right now of child sponsor time.
Yeah.
And I know that you have some goals.
Yes.
Tell us about it. This would be a great ministry moment.
A very small goal. The goal is a call. It's a clarion call for people who feel called to help us move 85 children who are on our waiting list from the street into classroom. Look the statistics up. United Nations has projected since 2015 that Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. This stat has stayed same for more than 7 years now. 60 million Nigerian children are on the street. Nigeria has 200 million people, and 70% of them are under the age of 25, and 60 million out of that are on the street. You add that up. Biza has 85 of them now who are desperately looking, waiting to be enrolled into school for only $775 a year or $995 or $975 a year, depending on the level. You can help us clean up our street and make our world a better place, one child at a time. Thank you.
Amen to that.